presidential race, meanwhile, is a dead heat between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. But the two major party candidates are also locked now in a debate, as I just mentioned, over the current president. In an interview Wednesday with the Washington Post, Trump did not give a straight answer when asked simply whether he still stands by his earlier assertions that President Obama was born in Kenya. Now, his campaign looked to settle the issue yesterday by releasing this statement. Reading in part, and I quote, "Mr. Trump believes that President Obama was born in the United States," end quote. Clinton sharply responded, tweeting, and I quote, "President Obama's successor cannot and will not be the man who led the racist birther movement, period," end quote. And here to break it all down, as you can see, a two-shot for the ages, Major Garrett and Nancy Cordes, both in Washington. So, Major, let's begin with you. We just heard not just what the Trump campaign had to say in lieu of its candidate actually saying it, but also Hillary Clinton's response. We heard the word racist used again in that tweet. In terms of optics, what does this say about the Trump campaign?
That it still doesn't know what it believes on this issue. Yes, Jason Miller, who is a paid communications advisor for Donald Trump, put out a statement saying Trump believes President Obama was born in the United States. But until Trump says it, this controversy, which he himself has stoked for the better part of 5 years, and which many of his supporters like him to stoke, will remain. Trump is the only one who can put this issue to bed if, in fact, he wants to. And we'll find out today or maybe over the weekend or some other place if he wants to. But he can only do it himself. A paid spokesman can't do it for him. Trump has stoked this issue. He paid for investigators to go to Hawaii. He alleged that this was one of the possibly biggest political cons in American history. That is to say, the underlying documentation establishing President Obama's birth in the United States. So it's up to him to deal with this, and his timetable is completely up to him. Given the opportunity to do that by none other than the Washington Post, he declined, allowing this controversy to germinate once again. So if Trump wants to kill it, he can. If he doesn't, he'll continue to either be vague or suggest there's something that still needs to be known about this. And the Clinton campaign will cheer him on because they know this is a wedge issue and something that their supporters get very riled up about and can be used to motivate them to show up.
And certainly, Nancy, with regard to Hillary Clinton herself, back out on the stump yesterday after a few days, of course, a way to change the narrative yesterday, come out swinging and put Donald Trump, who they have looked to goad in the past, back on his heels.
Right. And, now they've got two lines of attack, because on one hand, they can say Trump himself still is not willing to say that President Obama was born here in America. And then she can also say, and his campaign is in disarray. They don't even know what their candidate believes. They're on one side of this issue. He may or may not be on the other side of this issue. My campaign knows exactly where I stand on all of the issues. So the fact that the Trump campaign basically is trying to push their candidate into saying that he believes that the president was born in the United States, that this does not continue to be a political issue, becomes a news story in and of itself.
Interestingly, a majority of voters in the new CBS News poll release revealed that they think this election is more negative than any before. They think both major party candidates would be risky choices. But they also believe, by 17 points clear for Donald Trump, that in terms of transparency, he's leading the way. Again, Major, this is someone who still refuses to release his tax returns despite calls on all sides. And the House Speaker Paul Ryan once again saying that yesterday that he thinks that should happen. With now the birther movement questions returning, what does it say that that candidate is thought by almost 20% of the electorate to be more transparent than the other?
Well, I think that speaks to the underlying doubts about Hillary Clinton's own trustworthiness. And that shows up in poll after poll after poll. And those numbers have gotten worse, not better, in the last 3 weeks. So when people think about the topic in general, do you trust or accept what you are given by the candidate, there's a big hurdle for Hillary Clinton that she hasn't climbed over, less of one for Trump. That doesn't mean Trump is, by any standard, more transparent on medical records, on tax records, on a whole lot of other things. He isn't. But perception often is reality in politics, and the perceptions around Hillary Clinton's trustworthiness, candor, believability are problematic for her, to put it mildly.
And I think that it shows how much her email troubles have really permeated this campaign. Because do Americans think that she hasn't put forward enough tax returns? No, they know that she's done that. Do they think that she hasn't said enough about her health? No, they know that she's put forth her doctor's letters. So this really comes down to the fact that Americans have been hearing for almost 2 years now that she used this private email account and private server and did not hand over her emails until she was forced to. And even then, there were some questions about whether she handed over everything that she had. And this is something I will tell you that causes great frustration for the Clinton campaign, because they argue that she's the most transparent candidate in history, that she has given the American public 40 years of her tax returns, and that she has put out a doctor's letter that has more information than Trump's doctor's letters. And yet she is still seen as someone who is hiding something. And it turns out that that's very difficult to shake.
They keep using that word. I do not think it means what they think it means. Then, obviously, perhaps for both candidates, the first debate, now just 10 days away, looms as even more important than ever before. I want to ask you both about what you're hearing with regard to preparations in the campaigns. Major Donald Trump and really his senior advisors have been almost proud of the fact that they're not doing a whole lot. What are you hearing about what is happening?
Well, we still have heard nothing along the lines of what most presidential candidates do at times like this, which is stake out a couple of days to go someplace, get in a metaphorical bunker, and really work through the process of going through a couple of mock debates, going over their briefing books, et cetera, et cetera. That is the typical approach to a presidential debate. No sense from the Trump campaign that they're going to go down that road. And what's going to be interesting is Trump has tried to take pride in the last couple of weeks about putting out a lot of different policy positions. He's going to have to know those policy positions cold in a debate, not just be able to deliver them through a teleprompter. And a lot of those policies are not his organically, ones he's thought about and debated internally. They're essentially poured into his campaign by various conservative think tanks. So that works for a teleprompter speech. Can it work when you're having to joust about underlying policy details in a televised presidential debate? That's going to be a big challenge for Trump, because if he doesn't know his own policy as well as he reads it from a teleprompter, the voters will be able to tell that. Now, if he does, that'll be a plus for Trump. It'll be interesting to see how that plays.